here in the studio, and I've gathered some pieces here, and I wanted to talk about lids. There's two ways to do this. I could demonstrate making a lid, but I thought I'd show some finished pieces and then do another video of actually having the completed lids. Because there's lots of possibilities on how to make a lid. A lot of ways that they fit inside of a piece. I've got a small casserole here, and this is just a simple lid. This is called a gallery. And so you just make this with your finger, and then you throw this upside down, the lid itself upside down, and to match that, using some calipers to measure it, and it fits right into the gallery like that. That's a standard lid. Of course, you put the handle on after you've trimmed it and so on. But that's the basic lid. You can do that on all kinds of jars. Here's a little one that I did a little drawing of a bird on, but that's, again, the gallery in here, and then the lid drops down inside. And the shape of the gallery and everything is something that I can discuss when I'm making it, but I usually use either my finger to create that shape, sort of just a half moon shape, rounded shape, or I have a special tool to the end of my wooden tool that I use. And then this lid, instead of being thrown like the other one was, which was thrown this way, like a small bowl, this was thrown right side up. In other words, it was thrown like this, and the handle was thrown into the lid rather than added. And then it was, after it was cut off the hump, it was thrown in a large piece of clay, and then it was flipped over and then trimmed. And this is soda fired. That's why you see those three little marks there. This whole piece, of course, was soda fired. And again, another lid with a gallery. So tall piece, gallery done there, and that you can see is not glazed. So I use a little bit of wax when I'm glazing this around in there, and then on this area here, the lid is fired in place. That helps keep the piece round. It's really important on some pieces to fire the lid in place. Also, I might let you know that if you have trouble with your lid sticking inside of the gallery there, if you take your wax and add a little bit of aluminum hydrate powder to it, and then put that on both of these surfaces, it'll pop out much easier than just straight wax. Okay, now different other kinds of lids. Here's one that's similar to the kind of lids that I was just showing you, in that it's got a gallery in it for the lid to fit inside, but the lid has got this flange that goes down into the teapot, and that is so that it gives it a center of gravity that's much lower, so that when you go to pour the tea out, the lid doesn't pop off so easily. It's also got this little hole in it so that it can get air in it as you're pouring, so it doesn't gurgle. So this lid is thrown upside down, just like a little jar almost. You push your finger in here to form a flange, pull that up, and then cut it off down there at the bottom. After it sets up, you flip it over and then add the handle on, and that's it. Let's see, another type of lid. Here's another little casserole, soda-fired casserole. This is very easy to make, in that you don't have to make a gallery. You just throw it like a little bowl, and there's no, the only flange is this coming up, but there's no gallery and there's no dip inside of it. And so there's, a narrow piece that comes up. Now the gallery is actually in the lid, so the lid fits over this flange that comes up. And so when you measure it, you measure with your tongs on the inside here, and then you measure that inside distance right there, and it should fit just inside like that. And that's a nice lid. The lid itself is more difficult to do, but the body is much easier to do, so give and take. Here's the same kind of lid on a little jar with a crawl glaze on it. This is called a Chino crawl glaze. It's real rough. It's made to kind of pull away like that. But again, here's the flange, and then the lid is thrown like this. And there's no handle on this one. It's made so that it's large enough or small enough so that you can put your hands on it, pull it off like that. And this is a similar kind of lid again, in that this is thrown without a gallery. Flange comes up, And then this is even simpler. This is probably the simplest kind of lid to make that there is. This is just thrown upside down like this, and all you need to do is to measure the outside of this and make sure that the inside of the lid will fit on the outside of the jar here. Then after it sets up again, this one's a little warped, I can see, I add a little handle on it. The reason this is slightly warped is because it's not fired on the pot, because you can see that the surface is glazed. This one is not. So this was fired on a kiln shell, flat like that. I would think it would have stayed flat. I don't know what the use is. It's a little bit off though. Now I'm going to get to some little different lids. This is probably the most difficult kind of lid. This is a covered jar, obviously. And the jar is made, and then it's distorted, it's been paddled, and then I added these flanges on, just like a strip of clay on the inside of this. And now the difficulty is to make a lid that's square, obviously, and to fit this area here. So what I did is I took a hump of clay, as I recall, of something at least, and draped this over it to give it a slightly concave surface from here. And then I roughed it out, and then I just sort of put it on there, and you know what, that's not how I did it. What I did, it didn't have these little doodads on the top. I took the clay and rough cut it and put it upside down onto the lip of this, and then pushed it in with my hand slightly so it was sitting like this to give it the concave surface. And then when I pulled it off, I could see a slight line there. Then I used a pen tool to cut it, and then I refined it with a Surform. So I cut it with a Surform all along there. Now generally these square lids only fit in one direction, and so there's a little identification mark here and another one right there, so that you know that when you put it in there, it's going to fit just like that. And it probably won't fit like that, doesn't, or like that, and so on. So it always has to go back in that same direction. If you're really skillful and you do a lot of these, I'm sure that you could get it so it would fit in any direction. I don't do that many of them, and this seems to work just fine for me. Strange lid, a little decorative jar, but it's just a sphere, and I threw a closed sphere. In other words, I took a piece of clay and pulled it all the way over and reconnected it at the top, so this was hollow. And then that just sits on there. I pushed that down into the clay when it was soft to sort of give it that another concave surface, and it just sits in there. Fairly useless thing, but nevertheless it's sort of decorative and neat. Of course, when you make something like that, make sure there's a little pinhole in here. Otherwise you're going to have something blow up in the kiln, because there's a lot of air inside of here, and if it were totally enclosed, it would definitely blow up in the kiln. Here's yet another kind of lid. This is kind of fun. This is also thrown as a complete enclosed form. That is, it's hollow, and then after it sets up, then you trim the bottom of it, and then I took and just punched a hole in it, and then took my finger and then formed kind of a little thing so that I could put my finger in like that and use that as a handle to lift it out, and then it just sits right on there like that. So that's kind of a fun lid. And then the last one, and this is basically going back to the lid with the gallery on it, and this is sort of a I use this term loosely, but a locking mechanism. I mean, it's not going to keep anybody out, that's for sure, but I put these little loops here and over here, and then put a strip of bamboo across there to hold everything in place. So this is just a gallery and then a lid. And I took this lid as handmade. It could fit a little bit better. This isn't the best one of these I've ever made, but I took and did the draping of this inside of the piece after it was thrown, a soft piece of clay, and then I put it on a piece of styrofoam. Let me take this off. This bamboo actually broke. I have to put a new one on. But I put it on a piece of styrofoam like that, and then took a wooden tool, imagine it sitting on a piece of styrofoam, and pressed down into the styrofoam to give it those little bumps on top. And this has been soda fired with an ash glaze on it. So there's a few different kinds of lids. Give them a try, and as I said later on, I'm going to do a video of how to make these lids. I think you could probably figure it out though on your own. So good luck. Talk to you later. Bye.